Wish you would stay, but I know you gotta go. I hate change and I hate being alone. Never the same, the beginning always loved it more. Yeah. Just pull me apart, take me away. Tell me it's all gonna be okay. I wanna feel like I'm still alive.
It was a chance encounter at a crowded coffee shop. Jimin, a successful businessman, couldn't help but notice the intelligent and beautiful young woman sitting alone, lost in thoughts. Her worn clothing and old textbooks suggested that she was a student in need of financial support. Intrigued, Jimin decided to approach her. "Excuse me, miss. My name is Park Jimin. You look like you could use a break from studying. Would you like to join me?" Thank you, Mr. Park. I'm actually quite busy, but I appreciate the offer. And by the way, my name is Kim Wyan. She was struggling to pay for her tuition. She knew she was clever enough to succeed in life, but the financial burden was weighing her down. Jimin smiled understandingly. "I understand, Wyan. But maybe you could tell me more about yourself and your situation. It might help me understand why you're here studying so hard." Wyan hesitated for a moment, then decided to trust him. As they talked, Jimin found himself more and more drawn to Wyan. He realized that he wanted to help her not just financially, but in any way he could. As Wyan shared her story with Jimin, he found himself more impressed by her determination and intelligence. He couldn't help but feel a strong connection with her, and realized that he wanted to be more than just her friend or benefactor. "Wyan," Jimin began, taking a deep breath. "I know this is a lot to ask, but I want to help you. Not just financially, but in any way I can. I feel like we have a connection and I'd like to explore that further. Would you consider becoming my partner? Would you consider becoming my..." Wyan's heart skipped a beat at his words. She looked up into Jimin's kind eyes and saw genuine warmth and affection there. "Mr. Park," she replied, I don't know what to say. That's not something I've ever considered." "I understand, but hear me out. As I would provide you with financial support for your studies, as well as help you achieve your dreams. In return, I would expect some time with you. I think it could be a mutually beneficial arrangement." Wyan thought about it for a moment, weighing the pros and cons. She believed Jimin was the only person who could help her right now, and with his help, she could finally achieve her dreams. "Okay," she said finally, "I'll do it." A smile spread across Jimin's face. "Thank you, Wyan," he whispered. Excitedly, Jimin took out his wallet and handed her a wad of cash. This is for you, Ryan. Consider it a down payment on your tuition. You can use it however you need. Ryan couldn't believe her eyes as she counted the money. Tears of gratitude streamed down her face. Thank you, Mr. Jimin. I promise I won't let you down. He smiled, wiping away her tears. I know you won't. Now let's go celebrate this new chapter in our lives. And with that, they got up and walked hand in hand out of the cafe, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. Jimin and Ryan spent the rest of the day enjoying each other's company, laughing and sharing stories. As they walked through the park, they could feel the weight of their worries lifting from their shoulders. They knew that they had each other to rely on now, and that no matter what obstacles came their way, they would face them together. That night, they returned to Jimin's place. As they sat down on the couch, he leaned in close and kissed her tenderly. I wanted to do this, he whispered, his hands running through her hair. I've been waiting for the right moment. Ryan felt a shiver of anticipation run down her spine as she responded by him back even more passionately. They spent the rest of the evening exploring their newfound, discovering each other's. The connection between them grew stronger with each whispered word. As the hours passed, they fell into a contented silence wrapped in each other's arms. Jimin's arms were strong and protective around her, and she felt safe and secure in his embrace. For the first time in a long time, she knew that everything was going to be okay. She smiled up at him, grateful for the life they were building together. Ryan awoke the next morning, feeling the warmth of Jimin's chest against her back. She stretched lazily, enjoying the comfort of his embrace. As she began to stir, he opened his eyes and smiled down at her. Good morning, sleepyhead. How about some breakfast? She smiled back, returning his smile. That sounds wonderful. With a contented sigh, she nestled deeper into his arms. They spent the rest of the morning cooking together, making pancakes and waffles, laughing and chatting about their plans for the day. After breakfast, they cleaned up the kitchen together, their movements synchronized and harmonious. It was a peaceful movement that felt like the start of a new chapter in their lives. So, Jimin began as they stood side by side at the sink. What do you think? Do you want to go shopping for some new clothes today? Ryan nodded eagerly. That would be great. I've been meaning to get some new outfits anyway. As they dried their hands on a towel, Jimin turned to face her. His eyes were filled with love and affection. You know, Ryan, I'm so grateful for this arrangement we have. I can't wait to see all the amazing things you'll accomplish with my help. Ryan felt a lump form in her throat as tears welled up in her eyes. Thank you, Jimin. I feel the same way. I'm so happy to have you in my life. They leaned in and kissed each other tenderly, their hands intertwined. It was a moment of pure connection, a promise of a future filled with love and sport. They spent the rest of the day shopping for clothes and exploring the city. As they wandered through the bustling streets, they found themselves growing even closer, sharing jokes and stories with an easy familiarity. They stopped for lunch at a cozy little cafe where they shared a plate of pasta and a bottle of drink, laughing and teasing each other like old friends. By the end of the day, they had returned to Jimin's house, tired but content. As they sat down on the couch, Vian couldn't help but feel a sense of belonging and happiness that she hadn't experienced in her life. She turned to Jimin and smiled, taking his hand in hers. "Thank you for today," she said simply. "It was perfect." He smiled back, his eyes twinkling with affection. "It was my pleasure, Vian. I'm glad we had spent the day together. I hope you enjoyed yourself." He leaned in closer, his breath warm against her cheek. "And I hope you know that this isn't just about the money. It's about us together." Vian felt a wave of emotion wash over her as she returned to his embrace. "I know," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes, "and I'm so grateful for you, Jimin, for everything you've done and everything you're going to do." Their hearts beating in perfect harmony, and for a moment the world outside seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them lost in their love for each other. As Jimin's mother burst into the room. "Who are you? And what do you think you're doing?" She shrieked, her face flushed with anger. "How dare you take advantage of my son like that?" Vian sat up quickly, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. I'm sorry," she stammered. "We didn't mean for anyone to see us. It just happened." Jimin tried to reassure his mother, but she wasn't having it. "You should be ashamed of yourself," she shouted at Vian. "You're just after his money, aren't you? Trying to get, so you have a claim on us." Vian felt tears stinging her eyes as Jimin's mother continued to berate her. She looked over at Jimin, hoping for some support or understanding, but he just looked defeated. He sighed and stood up, moving to stand between his mother and Vian. "Mom, please," he said quietly. "It's not like that." His mother glared at him angrily. "Oh, really? Then what would you call it, Jimin, huh?" She turned back to Vian, her voice dripping with venom. "You're Vian felt a sharp pain in her chest. She looked at Jimin, searching his eyes for some sign that he still believed her, that he still cared, but all she saw was his expressionless face. She swallowed the lump in her throat and forced herself to speak. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never meant for any of this to happen." Without waiting for a response, she gathered her things and hurried out of the house, tears streaming down her face. She decided to confront her parents about the situation, hoping they would understand and help her sort things out. As Ryan stepped into her childhood home, she was greeted by the familiar scent of her mother's homemade cookies baking in the oven. She lied to her parents a year ago that she had won a scholarship and could study at the university for free. She did this because her parents were very poor and could not pay for her education. They were willing to sell their only house for her sake, but she did not want that. Instead, she pretended to have a scholarship and worked 2 or 3 part-time jobs to cover her educational expenses. But after 6 months, the fees and hostel rent increased, and she lost 2 jobs and became helpless. That's why she agreed to Jimin's proposal, but now she has somehow fallen in love with him. Her parents looked up from where they were sitting at the kitchen table, concern etched on their faces. "Ryan, what's wrong?" her mother asked, immediately rising to her feet. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Ryan took a shaky breath before launching into the story, tears streaming down her face once more. When she'd finished, there was a long silence in the kitchen. Her parents exchanged glances before her father finally spoke up. "We're here for you, sweetie," he said gently. "We'll help you figure this out." They sat down at the kitchen table and together they brainstormed ways for Ryan to confront her emotions and regain some control over her life. Over the next few days, they helped her research her options and plan for the future. Meanwhile, Jimin couldn't stop thinking about Ryan. He knew his mother had overreacted, but her words still stung. He found himself missing her presence in his life and wishing things could go back to how they were before. Despite his anger, he knew that he has fallen in love with her and wanted to be with her. He decided to write her a letter expressing his feelings and apologizing for his mother's behavior. With trembling hands, he placed the letter in an envelope and addressed it to her. The next day, he sent it off, hoping against hope that it would reach her. He waited for a reply. He tried to focus on his work, but his thoughts kept returning to Ryan. Finally, he received a reply. It was short but heartfelt. In it, Ryan apologized for her actions and admitted that she loved him too. She said she wanted to try and work things out if he'd give her the chance. She decided to meet at a coffee shop to resolve the matters, share their emotions, and work on fixing their relationship. As the appointed time drew near, Jimin took extra care with his appearance, wanting to make a good impression on Ryan. He arrived at the coffee shop early, finding a comfortable table in the corner and ordering a cup of his favorite coffee. The minutes ticked by slowly, but eventually he saw her walking through the door. His heart skipped a beat as he took in her familiar face and the way she moved. Despite everything that had happened, she looked as beautiful as ever. He quickly wiped away any tears that had gathered in his eyes and stood up, offering her a tentative smile. "Hey Ryan," he said softly, his voice barely audible over the background music. She smiled back at him, a mix of relief and happiness on her face, and slowly made her way over to his table. As she sat down, Jimin couldn't help but notice the small, nervous gesture she made with her hands. "Hi, Jimin," she replied, her voice shaky. Thank you for coming. They sat in silence for a moment, both unsure of how to begin. Finally, Jimin cleared his thought and took a sip of his coffee. So, he started, trying to sound casual. How have you been? Vian smiled softly, running a hand through her hair. I've been okay, I guess. Your mom's words really hurt, but I've been trying to focus on myself. How about you? She asked, hoping to ease into the more difficult topics. I've been alright, I suppose. Jimin replied, looking down at the table. It's been hard without you though. I miss our talks and the way you make me feel. He looked up at her then, his eyes filled with sincerity. I love you, Vian, and I want to be with you. Vian felt a lump form in her throat as she heard Jimin say those words. She reached across the table and took his hand in hers, giving it a squeeze. I love you too, Jimin, she said softly, and I want us to be together. I'm sorry for what I did, and I promise to be more understanding of your mother and her feelings. I just want us to be happy. They sat in silence for a moment, lost in each other's eyes, before Jimin cleared his thought again. So, do you think we can work on that? He asked, gesturing between them. I mean, starting over and making things right? Vian nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. Of course we can, she said, a genuine smile lighting up her face. I want nothing more than for us to be together, Jimin. With that, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. As they lost themselves in each other, their hands moved from the table, exploring each other's faces and hair. Time seemed to stand still as they continued to, their hearts racing and their flushed with emotion. When they finally pulled away, they were both breathless and glowing with happiness. Jimin smiled down at Vian, his eyes filled with love and relief. I've missed you so much, he whispered, tracing his fingers along her cheek. Vian smiled up at him, tears welling in her eyes. I've missed you too, Jimin. I'm so sorry for everything. He leaned in and kissed her again, this time more passionately, as they both vowed to move forward together stronger than ever. Their fingers intertwined. They sipped their cooling coffee, savoring the movement and the promise of a future filled with love and understanding. Despite the rocky start, they knew that they had found their way back to each other and that nothing could ever tear them apart again. True love is not a fairy tale, but a journey of trials and triumphs. It is the courage to face the storms, the grace to heal the wounds, and the joy to share the sunshine. It is the bond that grows stronger with every challenge, the hope that never fades, and the commitment that never breaks. It is the hand that holds yours, the heart that beats with yours, and the soul that walks with yours.
Talk about make better because we are perfect and attractive together. That hard we talk about, we need a talking about, we need a talking about.